Good morning, students. Now I will explain second chapter in this unit, that is Fraunhofer diffraction. Already we have successfully completed first chapter including problems, that is Fresnel diffraction. Already we have discussed what is Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction. Now we will discuss in detail regarding Fraunhofer diffraction in this chapter. First, let us discuss Fraunhofer diffraction at a single slit. How we can produce Fraunhofer diffraction in the laboratory. See, from this diagram we can see that a monochromatic source of light S is placed at the principal focus of convex lens cell. After diffraction through the lens, the rays are rendered parallel. These rays they made to fall on the slit AB, narrow slit AB of width A. A plane wavefront is incident on the another achromatic lens L2 and is brought to focus on the screen Mn. Here two convex lenses are used. From this diagram we can see that L1 and L2 are the two convex lenses are used. The line SP, which is perpendicular to the screen, here we can see that this line SP is perpendicular to screen. According to Eigen, each and every point on the incident wavefront acts as a source of secondary disturbance which produces secondary waves. These secondary waves, which are traveling parallel to the axis of L1 and L2, they are brought to focus at P. The secondary waves from the corresponding points in the point between AO and OB, they travel equal paths in reaching P. See here, between A and O and between O and B, they travel equal paths in reaching P, and hence path difference is 0. That is why always a maximum intensity is observed at P. Hence, always P corresponds to a central bright fringe or principal maxima. Since the path difference is 0, all the waves reaching at P produces central bright band, that is called principal maximum. Now consider the rays traveling in the direction AR. See here in this diagram we can see that these rays, they are traveling in the direction AR, which makes an angle theta with the direction of OP. All the secondary waves traveling in this direction, they reach the point P dash on the screen. See, we can see in this diagram the rays which are traveling by making an angle theta, after refraction through the lens, they will meet at P dash. The point P dash will be of maximum or minimum intensity depending on the path difference between the secondary waves from the wavefront. We see P always corresponds to bright band because path difference is 0. But P dash, it may be bright or dark depending upon the path difference. To know the path difference, let us draw two perpendiculars OC and BL to the diffracted ray AR. When we draw these two perpendiculars, then AL represents the extra distance traveled by the ray from A to reach P dash compared to the ray from B to reach P dash. Therefore, AL is called the path difference between these two rays. From the right angle triangle ABL, sin theta is equal to AL by AB. That is, AB is equal to the width of the slit A. Therefore, AL is equal to A sin theta. Path difference is given by A sin theta. This AL is the path difference between the waves from A and B reaching P dash. If this path difference between the secondary waves from A and B is lambda, let it be the path difference is lambda. Then the path difference between the secondary waves from A and O is lambda by 2 and O and B is lambda by 2, because from A and B, if it is lambda, then from A and O it will be lambda by 2 and O and B will be lambda by 2. Then see here, the for every point in the upper half OA, there is a corresponding point in the lower half OB. Because according to Huygens principle, every point on this wavefront serves as a source. For every point in this upper portion OA, there is a corresponding point in the lower portion OB, and hence the path difference between the secondary waves from reaching P dash from A and O is lambda by 2. Similarly, O and B is lambda by 2. Thus, destructive interference takes place and the point P will be of minimum intensity. See, when the path difference between A and B is lambda, then at P dash, destructive interference takes place and it corresponds to minimum intensity. Similarly, if the path difference is lambda, 2 lambda, 3 lambda, etc., then the point where they meet the screen will be minimum intensity. In general, we can write if the path difference A sin theta n is equal to n lambda, then we will get the minimum intensity or dark band. This sin theta n is equal to n lambda by A. Theta n gives the direction of nth minimum. From this, we can see that if the path difference is n lambda, that is lambda 2 lambda 3 lambda, then the point P corresponds to minimum intensity, that is dark band. If the path difference AL is 3 lambda by 2, then the slit can be imagined to be 3 equal parts. If the path difference is 3 lambda by 2, then you have to divide this slit into 3 equal parts. The secondary waves from corresponding points in the two portions of the slit P dash will reach with a path difference lambda by 2. They produce minimum intensity. See, if you divide the screen by 3 parts, then the path difference between first 2 parts is lambda by 2, and the next part is lambda by 2. This lambda by 2 and this lambda by 2, they get cancelled. And the remaining third portion, see, we can see from this diagram that from the first 2 half portions, that is lambda by 2, destructive interference takes place. The remaining third portion will produce certain intensity at P dash. Is it not? There is a third unbalanced portion of the slit which contributes towards the intensity at P dash, and it will be much less than that at B. If the path difference is 3 lambda by 2, then the first 2 parts they produce path difference of lambda by 2, they get cancelled, and the remaining third part only produces certain intensity at P dash. Similarly, if the path difference is 5 lambda by 2, 7 lambda by 2, the path difference is odd multiples of after wavelength lambda, then the directions of secondary maxima can be obtained. In general, we can write if the path difference A sin theta n is equal to 2n plus 1 lambda by 2, then we will get secondary maxima. Theta n gives the direction of nth maxima. Sin theta n is equal to 2n plus 1 into lambda by 2a. The resultant intensity is given by square of the resultant amplitude, that is equal to I is equal to square of the resultant amplitude, that is R square is equal to A square into sin alpha by alpha whole square, which is equal to I naught sin alpha by alpha whole square, where alpha is given by pi a sin theta by lambda and I naught is equal to A square. This represents principal maxima. The intensity at P is given by principal maxima. It is given by I naught, which is equal to A square. Now let us see the positions of principal maxima, secondary minima and secondary maxima in front of a diffraction. For the point P on the screen, that is where the principal maxima is obtained, for this position theta is equal to 0 and hence alpha 0. When alpha is 0, then the value of sin alpha by alpha as alpha tends to 0 is equal to 1. Hence the intensity at P is equal to I naught. When sin alpha by alpha is equal to 1, then from this equation we can see that intensity is equal to I naught. This is called principal maxima, which is the maximum intensity. Similarly, the position of secondary minima is obtained by the intensity is minimum when sin alpha is equal to 0. When sin alpha is equal to 0, then alpha is equal to plus or minus m pi, where m can take the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and you should not take m as 0 because m is equal to 0 corresponds to principal maxima. From equation 1, you can write alpha as pi a sin theta by lambda. Pi a sin theta by lambda is equal to plus or minus m pi. Pi get cancelled. Therefore, a sin theta is equal to plus or minus n lambda. Hence, points of minimum intensity on either side of central maxima is obtained. Position of principal maxima can be known from this expression. On either side of central maxima, this secondary minima will be produced. Secondary maxima. To know the position of secondary maxima, differentiate equation 1 with respect to alpha, and when we equate it to 0, then the value of alpha is found to be 0 plus or minus 3 pi by 2 plus or minus 5 pi by 2 plus or minus 7 pi by 2, etc. When alpha is equal to 0, then we know that I naught is equal to a square. This corresponds to central maxima. When alpha is equal to 3 pi by 2, then I1 is equal to, when you substitute for alpha 3 pi by 2, 3 pi by 2, you will get a square by 22. This corresponds to first secondary maxima. See how we can know the positions of secondary maxima in case of Fraunhofer diffraction. When alpha is equal to pi by 2, then the I2 value is found to be a square by 61, second secondary maxima. When alpha is equal to 7 pi by 2, then I3 is equal to a square by 120. This is third secondary maxima, and so on. See, we can see that as we move away from the central maxima, intensity of secondary maxima goes on decreasing. For first secondary maxima, it is a square by 22. For second secondary maxima, it is a square by 61. And for third secondary maxima, it is a square by 120, and so on. That means the intensities of successive maxima, they are in the ratio 1 is to 1 by 22, 1 by 61, 1 by 120. It is not 21, 120, etc. Hence, the diffraction pattern due to a single slit consists of central bright band. See, in case of Fraunhofer diffraction at a single slit, it consists of a central bright maxima. This is called principal maxima, and secondary maxima and minima on either side of this central maxima are produced in case of Fraunhofer diffraction. See here, on either side of central maxima, this is first minima, this is first maxima, for secondary maxima, and again second minima, this is second secondary maxima. Like this, on either side of the central maxima, different bands are produced in case of Fraunhofer diffraction. This is intensity distribution curve in case of Fraunhofer diffraction. Is it not? Here, we should note certain points in case of Fraunhofer diffraction, that is, the linear distance between the first minima on either side of central maxima. See, this is central maxima. On either side of central maxima, this is the linear distance. This linear distance is called width of central maxima, and width of central maxima is given by 2 lambda d by a. 2 lambda d by a. Angular width is given by angular width of central maxima, that is 2 theta, is given by 2 lambda by a. The distance of the screen from the slit at which spreading of light due to diffraction becomes just equal to size of the slit. See here, you have to adjust the distance of the screen such that the spreading of light is just equal to size of the slit. Then that distance is called Fresnel distance. It is given by a square by lambda. If the distance is less than Fresnel distance, then there will be no diffraction. Sometimes they will ask distinguish between Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction. You should know certain differences between Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction. Already we have discussed Fresnel's diffraction in first chapter. Now we have discussed Fraunhofer diffraction. Now you can distinguish Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction. In case of Fresnel diffraction, source and screen they are at finite distance, whereas in case of Fraunhofer they are at infinite distance from the slit. Here the wavefront is either spherical or cylindrical in case of Fresnel, whereas in case of Fraunhofer the wavefront is plane. The center of diffraction pattern is either bright or dark depending on the number of off-period zones. At the center, in case of Fresnel diffraction, it may be bright or dark depending upon the number of off-period zones. Whereas in case of Fraunhofer diffraction, the center of diffraction is always bright. Here, no convex lenses are used. In case of Fresnel diffraction, no convex lenses are used, whereas in case of Fraunhofer, two convex lenses are used. Here the distance is important in case of Fresnel, since the source and screen they are at finite distance, distance is important here, but in case of Fraunhofer, inclination is important, not the distance. The diffraction pattern is the image of the obstacle. The diffraction pattern produced in Fresnel diffraction is image of the obstacle, whereas in case of Fraunhofer diffraction, the diffraction pattern is image of the source intensity. These are the comparisons, differences between Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction. Okay, now I will stop here. Next session we can discuss diffraction grating. Okay, thank you.